Uh-oh.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. Hold
Hey,
on.
let me let me find my notebook here real quick. 1 second. Ah, here it is, right behind
see.
me. Okay, what's up, AG?
What's up? Reporter, journalist extraordinaire, writer extraordinaire, Sean Sotaro.
Hey, how you doing?
Glad to have you on the team, man. Glad
Of
to have
course,
you.
haven't seen you for what, a whole hour?
Yeah. So we're live, just to let you know.
hmm
And this was day 10. Maybe I should run down the things first, or maybe you got the gist, because I was already in there. You came after the lunch break, thank God.
hmm
This was
Yeah,
day
you
10.
can kind of say what the first. Maybe you can take the first half of the day, and then I can jump in and tell what happened in the second half.
Absolutely. So what I could tell you is that once I came in, there was a employee for the DA. What she was doing, she was like running down the CCTV footage, and she was kind of pairing up and syncing up the footage that she had with the TMZ footage that's been out there for some years, and try to align the shots, because with the CCTV footage there isn't no any audio, so that was I guess that was helpful for the jury to kind of narrow down what was happening. Let me see. They also pointed out how many times it was her job to look on Taxstone's and Troy Ave's Twitters to see how much they had mentioned each other. Now, Taxstone had mentioned Troy Ave in the total of maybe probably over 400 times via social media, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, from September of 2009 to May 26, 2016. Okay, so this is where this is where it got kind of interesting. Whereas they mentioned this man Oscar Navarra, who people who don't know who he is, he goes by the name ODA Hustler. And
Yeah. Oda Hustler. They
Oda
say
Hustler, I guess,
clarified
yeah, I guess
later.
you would
Yep.
pronounce it that way.
Yep.
The way they mentioned it in the court, it was ODA Hustler. Right. So let me see. And after that, they presented who he was, and then they played the Casanova call again. I'm not sure why, but again, that call. I'm trying to, for the people that are watching. I'm trying to get these exhibits. The ones that I can share. The phone calls, the audio, the footage. Again, in the state of New York, I'm not too certain how it works, but I'm trying to get it. I mean, with the Takashi case, I know it was federal, and that was available right after right after the certain trial days. But again, I can't. I'm trying here. I'm trying. What else? Okay, so yeah, they played that phone call again. For people who don't know, that phone call, what it contains is a wiretap between to Malcolm's phone. The feds were bugging that line, and it said Casanova basically calls Malcolm, describes, "Hey, Troy came in the room. It popped off. Um, it popped off. Troy had let off. I'm sorry, Chax had let off. He said he was crying as well. Let me see. Okay, they mentioned Telegram. Now, the other day, they had explained that, and I didn't know where they were going with this. They had explained that Tax was found with, in the total, since he's been locked up, about 6 phones. And I don't remember the date. I want to say 2022. I don't remember the exact month. They had found him with one phone, and it was hidden like in the radiator of his cell. So they extracted information from that phone, and they extracted from Telegram. They extracted conversations from Telegram. Now, this conversation contained audio. It contained obviously text. And today we had uh, seen what was that whole conversation. Let me see. I'm just going through my notes. My handwriting is a mess. It contained voice memos. Now it sounded like, so basically there was. Do you want to take it from here as far as the gentleman?
Yeah.
Oscar, yeah.
So basically, today was all about witnesses, right? It was Taxstone side presenting 2 witnesses, Oscar Navarez and Jitera Ibrahim, and the prosecution trying to discredit both of them by saying Tax's side reached out to them. In the case of Oscar, he's an aspiring rapper, so they essentially were trying to put out there that Tax said, you know, we'll get you money, we'll get you publicity, we'll get you a record deal. And they tried to paint Oscar as someone who said, oh, I'll say whatever you need me to say, Taxstone, as long as I can get PR to, you know, advance my rap career. And so that's the picture the state was trying to paint. And with Jitera, it was a little more ambiguous, but they were basically saying they were painting her as like, they were painting Taxstone as someone who already knew how to get in touch with her, right? In particular via Snapchat, which I'll talk about a little bit later.
Right.
Can
I stop you just for
yeah,
for
sure.
a second? Because I know you weren't there yet. Let me see. I want to break down.
Yeah, there was some kind of audio involving Oscar, right? Can you tell people about that?
No, well, it wasn't involving art. I'm sorry, Oscar. It wasn't. It was Tax. So basically, he was in communication with this woman named Brittany.
Who worked for him or something.
Right.
It was ambiguous. Like work for him, possibly his like A&R or something like that.
Right, an employee or something like that of his. And I'm trying to figure out what exactly he said. So I'm paraphrasing. I'm sorry. One of the things I said, hey, he basically, okay, how Oscar Navarra plays into the picture is that he DM'd Tax, and he mentioned that he sent him some music, and he mentioned that that he was also at the at Irving Plaza that night, and where all that thing went down, that whole horrible incident, and again mentioned, I guess and again somewhere in the conversation, Tax wanted to use him to take the stand for him in his defense, and to say that he didn't see a gun in my hand. Tell him that I want to tell him that he he didn't see a gun in my hands. He saw some Douce. He saw a cup, and I was trying to pour up some Douce. So basically that, and then it was kind of not. I'm not sure if you would call this a bribe, but kind of incentivize him and say, oh, hey, Brittany, take care of him. Mind you, Oscar and Tax, to my knowledge, what they represented, that they didn't really speak. They were speaking with this woman, Brittany, as a go-between. And Tax kept on saying, give him some incentive, check out his music, encourage him, see what's up. Maybe I'll hook him up with some Barclay tickets. And Taxstone clearly said, listen, if you got to suck his dick, something to that effect. Get him some girls, give him some pussy out or something. It was kind of wild. And
yeah, so that brings back to Oscar's testimony. So the jury we heard all this before we met Oscar, right? We saw this message exchange where Taxstone is telling his employee, look, take care of this guy, make sure he says this story. Then right after the lunch break, we see Oscar and he tells exactly that story. I was in the room, I saw Tax walk over, he had his hands full, and then I turned away and some shooting started. He had his hands full with, liquor and a cup. Oscar, of course, denied, knowing Brittany, I think he said he talked to her, but he denied taking any favors. He denied that anyone had told him what to say.
Right.
He said he never received any money or sexual favors or any other kind of compensation in return for his story. He said, hey, this is what happened to me. No one paid me to do this. No one told me to say this. So that was kind of the story with his witnesses, right? The prosecution tried to sort of discredit him by putting out this message between the defendant and his employee talking about this guy. And then we saw this guy And Taxstone's side, Taxstone's lawyer, Kenneth Montgomery, questioned him. And this guy said, no, this is just what happened. No one gave me anything. No one gave me any money or tickets or sexual favors or anything like that. There was sort of a similar story, although less dramatic, with the second witness, Jatara Ibrahim, who was also in the room. And you can actually hear her on the TMZ video. You can hear her voice.
Right.
She pointed that out very dramatically during the hearing, right? She said, you can hear me screaming, get out, get out. And there was this really vivid story of like her foot was stuck under the door. She couldn't escape when the shooting started. Really just awful, awful stuff. One side note, whenever she referred to Troy Ave, she just kept calling him the rapper guy over and over.
I don't know what was that about. I'm not sure if I couldn't tell if there was like a shot or she was just genuine. But
right. There's some plausible deniability there, right? Her story is, she was in the room. All of a sudden, 3 or 4 guys, including Troy Ave, come into the room and just start wailing on Taxstone, push him down, start punching him. And then a few seconds after that, there's some gunshots. She doesn't know from where or whom. Eventually, she escapes and she does see Troy Ave fire 1 shot, which lines up with what we know already, that he did fire, I think, the final shot of the half dozen gunshots.
Right.
So basically, like I said, the way the state tried to impeach her credibility was to say, how well did you know Taxstone? She said, oh, I followed him on social media. They said, what social media? She said, oh, Twitter. And they said, were you friends with him on Snapchat? And she said, no, there's a lot of bogus accounts on Snapchat. Like I wasn't friends with him, whatever.
Right.
And then the state, like I said, showed another set of messages between Taxstone and Brittany, where Brittany says, hey, I'm trying to call this Jatara woman, trying to get in touch with her. And Tax says, don't worry about that. He said, what exactly did he say? I wrote this down. Brittany says, I think Jatara changed her number. Is there another way to get in touch with her? And Tax said, yeah, I got that bitch on Snapchat. And then a little bit later, I'll take care of everything.
Right.
So that was the state's way of showing, hey, you can't trust this woman. She's maybe a little closer to Taxstone than she's letting on, was sort of the implication. They didn't say that, but that was sort of what they were implying, that maybe she was a little closer to Taxstone. And this ties into the state's overall argument that Taxstone is trying to buy, bribe, intimidate, whatever you want to call it, witnesses for his side. And You've probably seen some of that with the state's case, right? I'm sure they've talked about Tax and potentially trying to bribe or intimidate witnesses, right?
Intimidate witnesses? I don't think I can.
No, not intimidate. Let's not put that out there. But that they've tried to bribe witnesses like Oscar.
Right. I just want to be correct. I don't want to throw some kind of bad wording. Do you believe that's the correct wording to put on this? Bribe witnesses, or kind of given some kind of extensive? Is that bribing?
I mean, I would say that's how. I mean, the state didn't use that word, right? But I think that was the implication. The state was saying, look, you're paying this guy so that he'll say exactly the story you want him to say.
Right.
So that was kind of the story of today, was the state saying that, and these witnesses just telling, their memories of what happened. In both stories, the stories were slightly different, but more or less matched up. And in both of them, the witnesses did not see who fired the shots. And in both of them, Taxstone was not in a position where you might think he could easily fire a gun, right? In Oscar's story, he had his hands full with a liquor bottle in one and a cup in the other. And in Jatara's story, he was like on the floor being punched by a bunch of people. So neither of these are positions where, you could imagine he could easily fire a gun from. And I think that was what Taxstone's side was trying to get across, that look, there was this crazy melee. How could he possibly fire a gun? Look, he had his hands full, or people were punching him or something, but there was not he was not in an easy position to let off gunshots.
Right. I thought it was kind of funny that there was a witness that said she took the stand in defense of Tax and said that he was in the room being productive. There's no way he could have done that, I guess.
Yeah, that was Jatera's attitude, that Tax was in a good mood. He was networking. That was what she meant by being productive, like talking to people, networking, connecting with people, like generally sort of hosting. I don't know, hosting, but yeah, talking to people, connecting with people, and, you know, not in any type of angry or aggressive mood. In fact, very friendly and outgoing. That was Jatera's take. They also talked to the investigator. He didn't really say all that much.
Right.
Only that there was one more potential witness, this guy who was a friend of Oscar's, who he contacted, but ultimately who decided not to testify.
Damn it. I hope you listened better than me. Was it young Lito?
Remo, I think, or
Lito,
something?
Lito. I'm sorry, young
Lito. Ramik, this dude Ramik. Yeah, something like that.
Is that, because that could, if I'm not getting it confused, I believe that's Troy Ave's former friend, former artist. So that's very interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what. Go ahead.
Yeah, there were some funny moments. So there was stuff that happened actually at the very, very end. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I do, but I want to. Go ahead.
Oh no, just that happened sort of after the defense rested. So the defense presented these 3 witnesses: the investigator, who didn't really say too much, and Jatera and Oscar. Those were the defense's only 3 witnesses to present a case. As AG may have told you yesterday, Taxstone did not testify in his own defense, which is very, very standard in criminal cases.
Right. He actually gave up his choice to testify today, which I thought was interesting. I thought we were gonna, he was gonna give it a chance, but not. Let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
I found it interesting near the end that there, for the people that may know, there's this audio / video of Tax on his podcast, and he basically, I'm paraphrasing, says, anybody who comes up to me, get ready. He basically says, I'm gonna, I'll shoot you. Don't matter what goons you have around you. I'm not here. I don't want to hear. I don't want to talk. Nothing like that. And
yeah, they read a transcript of it at the very end. Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is an excerpt of one of Taxstone's podcasts where he's just kind of saying a monologue, and I didn't hear the actual audio. So AG, if you did, you could tell me the tone of it, but it seemed to be, him sort of boasting, bragging a little bit. It was like kind of comical. He was basically saying how he hates to be bothered by people. And, if any group of people comes up to him, he'll shoot first and ask questions later. Interestingly, he did not say, if some people come up to me in a threatening way, I'll shoot first and ask questions later. He just said, any group of dudes comes up to me, I'm shooting first, bang, bang, right? And so that actually indicates to me that he was more kidding around than serious, right? I mean, it seemed to have the feel of almost like a rant or a routine.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, the prosecution wants to introduce this because, according to one of the defense's witnesses, that's exactly what happened. A bunch of dudes ran up to him, and in the prosecution's theory of the case, Tax shot first. So here they have him on tape saying, if a bunch of people come up to me, I'm shooting first. I'm not asking any questions. They want to use that. So they brought it up at the beginning of the trial, got turned down. They tried again today. And what it reminded me of, actually, was all the controversies we're seeing now about the use of rap lyrics in trials. It was kind of like that. These weren't lyrics, obviously, but they were part of a podcast. They were part of a work of art. And I don't think that they were meant to be taken 100% literally. And I think to use them in that way is, I think the judge made the right call when he turned it down. The judge said, you can't use this. He said, this is more prejudicial than probative. And that's sort of a fancy legal word that means it would do more to turn people against Taxstone than it would actually give the jury valuable information. So negative, not for any good reason, overweighs any good information the jury could get out of it. So we can't use it. So I think the judge made the right call, but he could have made the wrong call. And I think that's potentially a little scary, that had he, weighed a different way or been a different person or in a different mood, they might have included this, and we could have had what was essentially a comedy bit, played for the jury as a record of how dangerous Taxstone is. So that was something notable. Kenneth Montgomery, it should be noted, Taxstone's lawyer, argued very vehemently against this, and ultimately, was correct. Kenneth Montgomery called it a First Amendment issue, and I don't know whether the judge agreed with that exact part of his reasoning, but Taxstone's side won the day in that. The jury will not hear that part of that excerpt from Taxstone's podcast.
Right. Honestly, I thought that was surprising because when as far as so much indictments on rappers, federal indictments coming down on rappers, and their lyrics being brought up when it comes to the federal government, you would think it would have been used, Taxstone's podcast, because mind you, he has talked a lot. I mean, a lot. Tweets is not the only thing. His podcast is not the only thing where he's, kind of alluding of what he would do or what he could do. So, I'm honestly, I thought I was surprised that the judge didn't allow that. But that's just my opinion. One thing I want to get out the way real quick, because I know you wasn't present for this. Just I want to lay this on the audience. In the Telegram chat, Tax they also played up audio of him saying that Montgomery is trying to push the trial back, keeps trying to push the trial back. That way, Malcolm Kenyon, who already cooperated against Tax, he took the stand, doesn't have the incentive. He's trying to push back the Taxstone trial. In that way, Malcolm Kenyon, the feds could sentence him, because mind you, at this point, he's not been sentenced yet. Malcolm Kenyon has not been sentenced. So he's trying to get, so that way he gets sentenced, and that way Malcolm has no longer an incentive to take the stand against Tax. So that was an audio that was played by Tax himself. He said this himself. So I thought that was interesting. And right. And hopefully, just for the people, I do plan to follow this Malcolm Kenyon guy and see if maybe what he has to say about all this. But we'll see what the future holds. I'm sorry, Sean, continue.
No, that's great. And then one other final thing that happened today, just at the very, very end, the DA is changing around the charges a little bit, what Taxstone is charged with.
Wait. Okay, before you continue, do you know? Did you find out what exactly? So you could, just inform the people. Originally, what was he charged with, and versus now, what did he add on?
Sure. There's two aspects to this. So it's not like they're taking any charges away; they're just adding more on.
Okay.
So he's already charged with murder in the second degree, and now, on top of that, they're adding a lesser charge of manslaughter in the first degree. So that means manslaughter in the first degree means he intended not necessarily to kill a person, but to cause serious physical injury, but instead he caused death. That's the manslaughter one. So that's the charge they added on as a sort of lesser charge. Now, it should be noted that this also is something that Kenneth Montgomery objected to vehemently, basically saying, look, you've had this whole time to set up that he killed someone intentionally. I don't want you to come in at the end and say, oh, he only meant to hurt someone, but he killed him, and give the jury a chance to say guilty on that. Unfortunately, he didn't have a legal leg to stand on, and ultimately he admitted that the way the law is set up, if either side asks for a lesser charge on top of the bigger one, it has to be included. If the judge says, look, this is plausible, maybe you can read the evidence this way. If either side wants it, it has to be included. So the prosecution wanted it. So now there's going to be a manslaughter one in the first degree charge in addition to this murder in the second degree charge. The state also added a second degree assault count to every first degree assault count. So basically the state is trying to say, look, even if he didn't, assault people in this way under this definition, here's a few more definitions of assault, that you should see if he did it that way or not. And there was some big discussion about different definitions of assault too, and what it means and how many of the different definitions should count. That was a little bit over my head, and that is sort of still to be determined. Basically, it seems like the state is adding a bunch of charges that may make it more complicated for the jury. And so that's sort of interesting too, right? Does the state want to make it simpler and maybe take a chance that the jury won't necessarily think that the definitions fit what Tax did? Or do they want to risk confusing the jury, including a bunch of definitions that maybe they can vote yes on, but maybe they get a little bogged down? Did he do it this way or that way, or did he intend this or that? And they just kind of throw up their hands and it's a mistrial or something. So we'll see how this plays out. I think on Tuesday, we'll find out. After the closing arguments, the judge is going to deliver the final charging statement where he says all of the counts and all the law. I've sat through those before. Those are really long and boring. So I recommend if you're at the closing arguments on Tuesday, maybe you go get a lunch break during the charging stuff. It's often hundreds of pages that the judge has to read out loud. But I would say the main thing to keep in mind is that the short version is the state is adding more charges. And if I'm Taxstone, I'm upset at this, because what this means is the jury has more potential interpretations of what he did to vote guilty on.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised how this played out. Listen, I know this is the first time that my audience is getting a view of Sean Sataro, the great Sean Sataro. So I'm glad. By the way, just for the people, he's joining my team. I'm gonna have him, go out here in the field and see if what we can get as far as these criminal cases. But what was your feeling? I know that you didn't know, you didn't file the case. This is the first time you were actually in court. This was day 10, and they're going to closing arguments is on.
Closing arguments, yeah. So all of the evidence is done, right? Closing arguments all trials are about stories, as you know. They're not about facts per se, they're about stories. And the closing argument is the story each side wants to tell. Right.
But let me tell you, since it was your first time at this trial, at the Taxstone trial, what was your feeling? Tell me what was going through your mind? Were you surprised? What was? Can you tell me what was going through your head?
Sure. Look, I saw literally none of the prosecution's case, right? In that when I got there after lunch, the defense was presenting. So I don't really know what was there. I know a little bit from talking to you and following in the papers. And, it seems like these things are always tough to prove. I wouldn't want to hazard a guess, again, because I didn't see the prosecution side. Full disclosure, I know, I wouldn't say that I know Kenneth Montgomery. We're not friends or close. It's been a very source journalist relationship. I've interviewed him multiple times over the years for multiple different projects and articles. He is a very dedicated, moral, and smart lawyer. I think He was very adamant today about what he believed in and arguing for what he believed in and what he felt was fair for his client. Some stuff he won, some stuff he didn't, but he always put up a fight. It seems like, to judge again from what I've heard from you, the prosecution is bringing a lot of stuff. I don't know how the jury will react. I was trying to get a read on them. It was kind of hard. The witnesses, it's hard. In some ways, it's kind of a wash. None of them said, I saw who shot and it wasn't Taxstone, right? They all sort of had confusing stories, and now the prosecution's trying to put a little bit of a cloud over their motivations. So, in the end, we'll see how much credence the jury gives these two defense witnesses, and whether they feel there's enough to, come down and say this guy did it. I guess, we'll find out. The jury probably start deliberating Tuesday or Wednesday, and, we'll figure it out then.
Right. Just for the people. I mean, I know, Sean, you weren't there, but you came after lunch, the lunch break.
Mm-hmm.
Once these audio, these voice notes were played from Tax's Telegram, from what they found from his Telegram.
Yeah. What was the mood in the room when that happened?
It just seemed like, okay, mind you, we're not. I mean, I wasn't expecting for Oscar to take the stand. Or at least not that day. So it looked like, oh shit, he's just gonna give us some sort of act or fake story, for whatever he was allegedly promised, or so it's like
he's telling the exact story that you just heard Taxstone say he wanted him to tell.
Kind of, little bit. So it's like, is he serious? The whole mood when the audio plays. It's like, is this guy serious? It's like, it seems like the prosecution, has this in the bag. I mean, it's tough, man. There's a lot against Tax. What can you say? And a lot of it has to do with, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with what Tax, these, when it comes to your phone, that's your biggest, that's what they'll use against you, what you write and what's in your phone, that data.
Right. There was a side note in, I think, the call and the stuff with Oscar, where the prosecution tried to say, oh, he only talked to Brittany on FaceTime. Brittany would only talk to him on FaceTime. The implication, as I'm sure your viewers know, is that it's harder to intercept FaceTime calls than regular phone calls. I don't know if that's true. That's what a lot of people believe. I'm not a tech head, I don't know, but that certainly is what a lot of people believe.
Right.
And so that was sort of what the prosecution was implying, that there were calls between Oscar and this Brittany woman who works for Tax that she didn't want taped. That didn't really go anywhere. Oscar said, no, I didn't have an iPhone at the time. I never FaceTimed with her. Like, what are you talking about? So it kind of got dropped. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely part of the picture the state was trying to paint of these like surreptitious communications between Taxstone Stein and his witnesses.
Let me ask you. I need to know your opinion from what you saw today.
Mm-hmm.
I know you didn't get to look at the prosecution's evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Tax has a fair shot of going home?
I don't like to speculate on this stuff, and particularly when I didn't see the prosecution side. So I'm not trying to be rude, not trying to be a jerk, but mm-hmm. I don't want to, for a bunch of reasons, I don't want to put myself out there as having an opinion, having a guess. It's an awful situation all around. I'm just trying to get a feel for who the players are and what's been happening.
Correct. Are you down to answer the question? Some questions from the audience. I'm not sure if they have some questions for you, but
yeah, sure.
Right.
Let's get it going. If anyone has some questions.
Yeah, chat. Go ahead if you have anything you want to know. I know he was only present for one day, Sean, but
yeah. Also, for your audience who may not know, I wrote a book about the Tekashi case called Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix9ine and the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. Go find it on Amazon or wherever you buy books.
Right.
I know AG has his signed author copy somewhere around.
And I appreciate it. Thank you. I mentioned in the book, so thank you for that shout out. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. So questions about that or other stuff involving, rap, lyrics on trial, things like that, whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm down.
Yeah, there's no questions coming through, but tell me about the because you did a piece on Melly, right?
Yeah, we did a podcast. We did a podcast called Infamous, and the first season was about Tekashi 6ix9ine. The second was about YNW Melly. You can find them both on Spotify. And the Melly case was just crazy, and it continued being crazy even after the last episode of the podcast aired. And we continued. As of today, he still hasn't gone to trial. He turned himself in. Gosh, was it February 2019, something like that? And still, so over 3 years, still no trial.
Right.
Yeah, it was a crazy case. For your listeners who might not know, this was a rising rapper, had a hit song called Murder on My Mind, and was accused of killing his 2 crewmates and best friends, and
Jesus Christ.
Enlisting their 4th crew member to help him and basically drive the car and stuff. And supposedly to make it look like a drive-by. It's a fascinating case, and it says a lot about stardom and criminal justice and small town Florida and all sorts of stuff. And we're still watching it play out. It has been a very long process trying to get it to trial. As you can imagine, a lot of people who were happy to talk to the police when no one knew who did the murders are now a lot harder to find once Melly is actually accused and standing trial. So a lot of potential trial witnesses have sort of been in the wind, or they've had a lot of trouble finding over this whole past couple of years. Right now, it's held up because it's actually a death penalty case. And so right now, both the sides are going back and forth about whether the death penalty is going to be on the table. That is, Melly's side is appealing that to the Florida Supreme Court as we speak. So we're waiting to see if the Florida Supreme Court is going to take that case up or not.
Right.
And if they do, then they do that. And if not, then the trial may actually start.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That'd be an interesting case to follow. We'll see what happens.
Definitely.
Well, there it is. I don't think there's any questions for you, but there are like 2 questions, but I can answer them. That's about Roland Collins on the stand. How long was Roland Collins on the stand, and will anybody have the audio of the Casanova phone call? If anybody could get those exhibits, it's just my guy right here, Sean.
I will try. I've been trying, but I'll follow up with the office. Yeah, AG, great talking to you, and let's do it again real soon.
There it is, man. Thank you very much, Sean.
All right, take care.
Take care. Classic Rock. How much time was Troy actually facing? In court they said it was like 15 to 25. Mind you, with his cooperation, in exchange with his cooperation, the DA is recommending 1 year to the judge in Troy's case. So that's how much time. Troy was on the stand for the whole day. He testified the whole day. I'm trying to get that call though. At least I could do right away. I know his transcripts, so you'll probably I could get that out when this is over. So yeah, just stay tuned. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. I mean, 1 year is something though. All right, man. For everybody who enjoyed the interview, the stream, I appreciate y'all. Yeah, follow me on Instagram at This Is AGTV. Appreciate the coverage. Yeah, no doubt, Classic Rock. All right, man. It's kind of weird for me just talking to myself. All right, man. But I appreciate you. Hit that Cash App if y'all rock with me. Come on, man. I'm not monetized, so let me know. All right. I'm out. Great episode, bro. What'd you like to see? I'll try to get Sean. I'll try to get Sean, Manny. I'm definitely trying to get him more. He's part of he's part of AGTV now. So yeah, I'm gonna hold him hostage. That's just the recommendation. 0 to 5 years at the judge's discretion. Appreciate you. You not like me. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna follow up with Troy's lawyer, Troy Half's lawyer. I know he doesn't have an issue with speaking with me. Maybe so we'll I might get an interview with him so he could break down Troy Half's cooperation deal. So yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I'm out.